Today I'm sharing 5 of the most common beginner guitar mistakes that I see, and I've done myself, and what you can do to fix them. Now before I start, doing these things doesn't mean that you're a bad guitar player at all, but if you can work on them, you'll just have a much easier time with your playing. First up, a lot of beginner guitar players, especially self-taught players, don't use their little finger, so they're limited to just these 3 fingers instead of 4. And there's a few ways that this can hold you back. Firstly, when you're playing, you might be stretching at some odd angles, and this can put some extra strain and pressure on your hand. Also, you're limiting your playing speed. By adding in that extra finger, we can hit more notes quicker and more comfortably. Again, there's plenty of amazing players that don't use their little finger at all, like Jimi Hendrix, Joe Bonamassa, and Eric Johnson. The latter two especially can hit some really high speeds on their guitar. But you'll have a much easier and more comfortable time if you're using all your 4 fingers. Now, if you do play using your little finger, there's another problem that might come up, and that's called flying pinky. This is when your little finger comes too far away from the fretboard when you're playing, just kind of like flies around. And this can be caused by a few things, like your neck grip, not having enough independence over your fingers, or just pushing too hard with your other fingers, and I'll touch more on that one in a minute. And this can really affect your playing. Not only does it make you slower because there's more distance to travel back to the fretboard when you want to fret a note, but all that flapping around is just wasted energy, and it's going to put more strain on your hand and just make you tired quicker. To help fix this, there's a really easy guitar exercise that you can do called the Spiderwalk. All we're doing is we're walking our fingers up the strings like this. Then once we get to the top of the strings, we're going back down like this. And what we're doing here is we're just really focusing on using each finger independently and making sure that it stays close to the fretboard after we've done using it. So we're just being more conscious of our fretting overall and just really building up that good technique. Another benefit of this is you're really building up the coordination between your 2 hands. So it's a really worthwhile one practicing, even if it does sound quite annoying. As I mentioned earlier, another thing that beginner guitarists do, and something that I did myself quite a lot, was pushing too hard on the frets. And this not only wastes energy and puts more strain on your hand, but it can also make your guitar sound worse. It really doesn't take a lot of pressure to fret a note. And another part of this is where you place your finger on the fret. If you put your finger too far back, then you can start getting fret buzz. A good way to think about it is if you split the fret in half, you want to be in that second half. And it's something that you can work on in that Spiderwalk exercise and really tackle a bunch of things all at once. Another thing that a lot of beginners, and to be honest, probably most other guitarists, aren't doing enough is cleaning their strings. Wiping your strings down with a clean cloth before and after playing helps remove any dust or dirt or sweat from your hands that will transfer onto your strings when you play. And if you've not changed your strings in a while, or if you've not cleaned your fretboard in a while, you'll see that this builds up into some really gross, gunky dirt that just sticks to everything and is pretty gross. Now, not only does it keep your guitar cleaner, but by removing that sweat and grime, it keeps your guitar strings fresher for longer, meaning that they're less likely to snap and they'll sound better. And while that will extend your strings' lifespan, you're going to have to change them eventually. And one thing that I've seen quite a lot of is that beginners aren't changing their strings regularly enough. They're maybe just waiting until the string breaks before they change them. Now, it's really important to get into a good routine of changing your strings, because the older your strings get, they'll sound worse, they won't hold their tuning as well, and they can be harder to use. They're working more against your hand. Now, you don't have to change them every week, but you'll know it's time to change your strings when maybe they don't sound like they used to, they sound a little bit duller and flatter, or they're not holding their tuning. Or if you start to notice a build-up or a graininess, or especially rust on your strings. Now, if you've never changed your strings before, it can seem a little bit intimidating, but I've got a really easy to follow step-by-step guide up here that will walk you through each step of the process. And I promise it's really not as hard as you think it might be. And related to this, knowing how to set up your guitar is another essential skill that just isn't talked about enough in beginner spaces. And when I say setting up your guitar, I just mean adjusting things like the neck relief, the height of the pickups, the distance from your strings to the fretboard, that kind of thing. just to get it in the best playing condition for you. And another benefit of this is that if you have a more affordable guitar, which is more likely if you're just getting started, then learning how to set up your guitar will make it feel and sound like a more expensive guitar. And that's because beginner guitars don't come set up, they're just put together and shipped as is, whereas more expensive guitars leave the factory with some kind of setup. Now, I've got a video showing exactly how to do a guitar setup step by step up here, and it really is straightforward. If you take your time and do it step by step, you'll have no problem at all. And that's it. Let me know if you found this video helpful by giving it a like and dropping a comment below, and subscribe for more guitar stuff. Thank you.